From the greatest cyber thief in history to the first kid ever locked up for stealing classified data, the internet holds a staggering amount of information, and a lot of folks think of it as the safest vault in the world. But try telling that to the brilliant, seasoned hackers out there, the ones who treat the whole internet like a toy, and at the same time, a key to untold riches and a treasure chest of secrets the rest of us never get to see. Today we're counting down the 10 most dangerous hackers in history. But real quick, before we dive in, do me a favor. As we go down this list, keep a running tally in your head, and by the end, drop a comment telling me which of these 10 you think is the most dangerous. I read every single comment, and trust me, you folks never agree on this one. And if hackers, true crime, and the wild side of the internet are your kind of thing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way the next one lands right in your feed. All right, let's get into it. Number 1. Yu Pinggan. Yu Pinggan was a Chinese hacker who went by the handle Gold Sun, and a few years back he got caught and arrested on cybercrime charges. He was picked up in August of 2017 and accused of conspiring to build and use a piece of malware called Sakula. According to US authorities, that malware was used to break into federal government systems. And here's the kicker. The attack walked off with personal data on millions of American government workers, both current and former. Yu got thrown in jail, where he sat for a year and a half. In February of 2019, he was found guilty, but the sentence they handed him was time he'd already served behind bars. So they let him head back to China. Now, lucky for him, Yu turned his life around and stayed off that slippery slope for good. Back home, he started teaching computer classes at a middle school in Shanghai, and on top of that, he passes real cybersecurity know-how on to his students. Number 2. Cracker. Think about what your average 15-year-old is up to. Hanging out with friends, going to school, getting ready for the real world, falling in love for the first time. But this hacker, the one who went by Cracker, at that same age, he was already pulling off the impossible. He managed to break into the personal email of the director of the CIA, the inbox of the deputy director of the FBI, and the account of the head of US National Intelligence. At 15. Now, Cracker didn't do all this alone. He was part of a crew called Crackers with Attitude, a nod to the legendary hip-hop group NWA. The Crackers pulled off cybercrimes on a global scale, breaking into the email accounts of high-profile people and leaking their private and classified info. Cracker got caught and arrested in 2016, and he had to face the music. By then, the kid was 16, and here's what's interesting. Cracker was more than happy to talk to reporters. He'd walk them through exactly how the attacks went down, and he kept hammering one point home. It all came down to social engineering. He had a lot to say about his motives too. Cracker spent something like 7 hours in jail before he was released on bail. After that, police searched his home and seized every last piece of electronics he owned. Number 3. Albert Gonzalez. The New York Times called Albert Gonzalez the greatest cyber thief in history. And honestly, that's hard to argue with. Gonzalez stole credit card data on a scale that's tough to even wrap your head around. Over the course of 2 years, he stole and resold, depending on who you ask, somewhere between 90,000 and 100,000 credit card and ATM numbers. He did it by installing a sniffer program, which let him watch and grab data moving through corporate networks. All in all, Gonzalez is estimated to have stolen around $200 million, though he personally only pocketed about $2.8 million of it. Either way, schemes like that don't stay in the dark for long. In 2010, Gonzalez got hit with a serious sentence, 20 years in prison. Number 4. Max Ray Butler. Max Ray Butler is another big-name cyber thief, right up there with Albert Gonzalez. Butler, who also went by the handles Vision and Iceman, made his living running IT security audits. For $100 an hour, he'd break into his clients' websites and systems, then turn around and tell them exactly what holes he'd found in their defenses. But on the side, he was sneaking into networks nobody invited him into. We're talking servers at military bases and nuclear labs, plus the departments of the Interior, Commerce, and Transportation. He was arrested in 1998, and in 2001 he was sentenced to a year and a half behind bars. After serving his time, Butler got out, met up with a buddy from prison, and went right back to what he did best: breaking into networks he had no business being in. And here's the part that'll get you. All of this was happening while he was under years of court-ordered supervision after his release. This time, though, the hacker started going after credit card numbers. Max even set up his own marketplace for collecting and selling stolen card data. Between June of 2005 and September of 2007, he stole 1.8 million credit card numbers. Investigators were convinced that 1.1 million of those he grabbed directly himself. In 2007, Max was arrested again, and in 2010 he was sentenced to 13 years. On top of that, the court ordered Butler to pay banks and financial firms $27.5 million in restitution. All told, his actions hit around 10,000 financial institutions. So impressed by these hackers so far, I sure am. But honestly, these aren't even the most brilliant or dangerous cybercriminals on this list. The best is still ahead. Stick with us to the end, and you'll hear about the hacker who got his hands on tons of classified US documents. You'll meet the first kid ever sent to prison for stealing classified data, and you'll learn about the cybercriminal who broke into the systems of just about every major company on the planet. Number 5. Julian Assange. Julian Assange is a well-known Australian hacker and the founder of the non-profit WikiLeaks. He got into hacking at 16, and he lived by a very specific code. Don't damage the systems, just share the information. Over the span of a few years, he broke into the networks of all kinds of corporations, government agencies, and universities, including NASA, Lockheed Martin, Stanford University, and the Pentagon. In 2006, he founded WikiLeaks, a platform that publishes classified information pulled from anonymous sources or leaks. In the years that followed, he got his hands on a massive trove of classified US documents, most of them tied to military operations. In 2010, Assange was placed on an international wanted list, and in 2012 he moved to Ecuador, which granted him political asylum. It all came to an end the year Ecuador finally revoked that asylum, and that same year he was arrested. Number 6. Astra. Astra was the handle of a hacker who specialized in stealing and selling weapons data. Behind that name was a 58-year-old Greek mathematician, a man a lot of people consider a genius. For 5 or 6 years, this guy broke into the systems of the French company Dassault Group, stealing data on weapons manufacturing technology and selling it to countries around the world. Astra sold that data to 250 buyers across the globe, costing the company an estimated $360 million in damages. And even though Astra's real identity is still unknown, officials say he'd been hunted since 2002. In 2008, he was finally caught and sentenced to 6 years. To this day, nobody knows exactly where Astra is. Number 7. Jonathan James. Jonathan Joseph James earned his place in hacking history as the first juvenile ever sent to prison for stealing classified data. When he committed the crime, he was just 15, some say 16. Either way, Jonathan was a world-class hacker. He stole data from the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, which falls under the US Department of Defense, and in 1999 James went after NASA's databases, and that last one blew up into a huge scandal. NASA had spent $7 million on the very software this young hacker managed to steal. James himself argued the software wasn't worth anywhere near that much. In the end, he was arrested. After serving his sentence, he went straight and became a law-abiding citizen. But Jonathan's name was tarnished for good. In 2007, he was accused of involvement in the hacks against the company TJX. The claim was that James had stolen customers' credit card data. The former hacker denied every bit of it, but even so, he felt the situation slipping out of his hands. Jonathan was terrified of being thrown back behind bars, and in 2008, he took his own life. In the note he left behind, he wrote that this was the only way left to take back control. Number 8. Gary McKinnon. In the early 2000s, Scottish hacker Gary McKinnon broke into hundreds of computers at NASA and various agencies tied to the US Department of Defense. And he did it with this casual, almost mocking attitude. After breaking into Pentagon networks, for example, McKinnon left behind a message: "Your security is crap." He locked up more than 2,000 computers in the Washington military district for a full day, holding up a weapons shipment, and deleted critical files on top of it. His spree got labeled the biggest military computer hack of all time. But here's the twist. McKinnon flat out denied he was ever meddling in US military affairs. He claimed he was only breaking into those networks to dig up evidence about UFOs. A pretty original excuse, right? Remarkable, astonishing, genius. And get this, even though they eventually tracked McKinnon down and caught him, he never spent a day behind bars. Here's why. In the UK, computer security offenses aren't grounds for extradition, and the legal case against McKinnon still isn't fully closed. If US authorities ever win it, the hacker could face up to 70 years in prison. But for now, the Scotsman is a free man. Number 9. Dark Dante. Dark Dante, real name Kevin Poulsen, is a retired hacker who without a doubt ranks as one of the most dangerous and mysterious hackers in history. Most people spend years saving up for the dream car they've always wanted. But Dante apparently figured that was way too slow and boring. So he decided to land himself a car using his hacking skills instead. In 1990, he hacked the phone lines of the popular LA radio station KES FM and walked away with a brand new Porsche. He grabbed a few other on-air prizes that were up for grabs at the time too. But his career didn't stop there. If anything, Poulsen decided to take it further and use his skills for good. For instance, he tracked down and identified MySpace users who were searching for illegal material online. And before long, Poulsen raised the stakes even higher, breaking into an FBI database and getting access to classified information about wiretaps. The FBI found out about it, and let's just say they were not happy. So it's no surprise that, after a while, Poulsen was caught and sentenced to 5 years. After serving his time, Dante became a regular guy. He left the dark stuff behind a long time ago, and these days he works as an editor at Wired magazine, where he still writes every now and then about his old hacking adventures. Number 10. Kevin Mitnick. The legendary American hacker Kevin Mitnick made his name back in the 1980s. Back then, Mitnick broke into the systems of just about every major company you can name. He cracked networks, stole passwords, lifted valuable data, and generally made life miserable for corporations and the US government alike. After an attack on the network of the American computer company DEC, Kevin spent a year in prison and was released under 3 years of supervision. But near the end of that term, the hacker went on the run, and over the next 2.5 years, he pulled off a string of high-profile hacks involving stolen corporate secrets and attacks on national security alert systems. At the close of the 20th century, he was found guilty of a whole pile of computer and communications crimes. Kevin was hit with 23 counts of computer fraud. The prosecutor claimed Mitnick was responsible for more than $80 million in damages. He was supposed to serve around 11 months, but it dragged out to 4 years because investigators kept turning up new evidence that gave them a reason to keep him locked up. After serving his sentence, Kevin walked away from hacking for good and became a public figure. He turned his focus to protecting computer systems, founded a company called Defensive Thinking Inc., and worked with law enforcement from time to time, tracking down hackers and scammers. Well, that's a wrap. Drop a comment and let me know, what would you do if you were a master hacker? And thanks so much for watching.